Hey guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today we're talking about how to break down a lake, how to show up on a new body of water with a map, maybe your electronics, and immediately know where to go and how to start catching fish with confidence. Now, obviously, this is a very relevant topic for us right now. Having just relocated across the country, breaking down a new body of water, Chickamauga, and breaking down a variety of different bodies of water all over the Southeast is our new reality. So spending time with maps, with electronics, with what Tim showed you on Google Earth recently. If you missed that video, we'll link that one down in the video description. But understanding how to break these fisheries down quickly is a reality for us. It's a way of life we're going to have to live for a couple of years. Thankfully, it's something that we've been doing a lot the past few years. As you guys might recall, we were first on Chickamauga about a year and a half ago. Cece, Sierra, and I were going cross-country on a road trip. This was one of our stops. We arrived on Chickamauga. We were here for exactly 2.5 days. And that was all the time it took to dial in the lake, catch a ton of fish, and catch some really, really nice fish. In fact, if you missed that video, we'll link that down in the video description as well. But there are two different kinds of breaking down a lake. There's what we did a couple of years ago, which is essentially just a surface approach. Get there, find fish, catch them, get out. And then there's the in-depth, hey, we're going to live here. We're going to be here all the time. That is a completely different level of breaking down a lake. Today we're going to look at both styles. So let's kick it off by taking that surface level approach to any lake. Now I've got a Chickamauga map here. I'm just going to use that for an example, but you could do this on any lake. So just a surface approach, a beginner's approach, a guy who's going to be on a new lake this weekend. Let me show you what we did a year and a half ago to quickly find fish on this lake. All right, now this is the upper end of Chickamauga. That's Watts Bar up there. Then you come down the river, and that brings you about halfway down the lake. This is the Hiwassee River. This is the Tennessee River. Now, the first thing we did when we were here before was, well, thank you, wind, was turn that map over. Now, there's the Hiwassee again, coming down to the main lake and ultimately the dam. If you have a short period of time on the water, you've only got hours, a day, 2 days a week. Your goal is not to break down an entire 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 mile long lake. That is not the goal. The goal here is to identify the section of the lake that is the most likely to be consistent. So that upper stretch, the river stretch of the lake, we just immediately delete that because that is current driven. There are a lot of factors there that will turn fish on and off. We can't even see the upper end here, but here we see the Hiwassee River. There's a lot of current coming through that section. It's all coming together here before coming down into the rest of the lake. From here up, we just eliminate that short term. We want to avoid huge current impacts, anything that can turn fish on and off quickly, even when we're doing the right thing. So when we were here, we took a look at a map, and what we did was we centered in on this area. It's the nearest to the dam. So we came up from the dam. The dam is always the most stable water in the lake. Backtracked from there to the first area that was the most interesting. So what we have here, we've got Harrison Bay, we've got Chester Frost Park, and a couple of arms in here. This area is where the lake widens out, and you have the least amount of current. We also have a lot of interesting areas. We've got wood in the water. We've got a lot of island tops, submerged island tops, big channels that run back in. And then we've also got the actual main river. You can see the marker buoys going up both sides of the river arm. So we've got that ledge fishing, the ledges that we've always heard about running down through there. So first thing we did is identify the most stable end of the lake, then backtracked to the area nearest to that had a lot of features that gave us deep water, near shallow water. It gave us spawning areas where these fish could tuck back in. We see that we've got structure out here. We've got some offshore humps, high spots, and again, that deep water and that main river ledge. That was the area that we were going to focus our time on. And that is exactly what we did. So we started fishing that area. I looked at my mapping ahead of time. When I got in the boat, I got on my electronics. That's a little more in-depth. We'll talk about that when we talk about the in-depth approach here in just a few minutes. This is the simple version. Now, again, we're looking at the Chickamauga map. This could be any lake. Find where you've got a lot of contours, deep water, coming up against shallow water, good spawning areas, closest to the dam. That is the most stable water on any lake. Now, when we were here, it was May. So fish were up shallow. That part doesn't matter. What we did is we came up with a two-part approach. We knew that we had a couple of days. So step one, we were going shallow. We went and did that. Step two, we were going deep. We went and did that. So we identified in that area a couple of creek channels that looked good, that had what appeared to be cover, old timber, back in a couple of creeks. We thought spawning fish, post-spawn fish, still roaming around the shallows, they should be up there. Then we looked at that same area. We identified a couple outside points, longer points that ran out deeper, had humps on them. That stuff is key post-spawn going into summer, all the way through summer. And again, that stuff is key in the wintertime too. Those longer offshore areas. We identified a couple of those. So one day shallow, one day deep. By then we had it dialed in and we were catching fish. It's really that easy. From a surface approach, if you're just going to be on a lake for a short period of time, never attempt to take on the entire fishery. Play the odds, maximize your time, and identify the area that is the most stable and the most likely to bite all the time. Now let's jump in and let's take a much more in-depth look, because what I want you guys to understand, there's two parts to this video. There's what I'm talking about, how to break down a lake, and there's also a little bit of what Tim and I are up to. You know, as we go into summer, or I'm sorry, as we go into fall, we're leaving summer, you're going to see over and over again videos of us breaking this lake down in depth, but they're mixed with all sorts of other videos. You know, you saw Tim talking about how to get on Google Earth, find those spots, key areas, and later he's going to show you how to get those out, how to export them. But why do you think he was doing that? He's sitting up late at night studying this lake because this is our new home. I'm out here sitting on the boat, looking at my electronics, looking at maps. If you don't carry old paper maps, you're crazy. I have paper maps of all the major lakes that I fish. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, I've done it since I was a kid. Tournament fishing, the first few years that we used to do that, we did that with paper maps sitting in our laps so we could figure out where we were going. We didn't have GPS yet. But with boats, modern electronics, we get so reliant on that. If you ever have a battery problem, if you ever have an electronics issue, and you drop mapping, especially on one of these river systems, you need a paper map to show you the way home if you're not familiar with that lake. So we always carry that paper map. But of course, we also use our electronics a lot. I'm going to show you that in a minute because it just gets that much more in depth when we switch over onto the electronics, and we can really dial in and really zoom in and see what's going on underwater. Because on a paper map, I'll see a little point. On my electronics, I'll see that entire point. I'll see the high spots. I'll see the sweet spots. I'll see where it breaks on one side. It's just that much more detailed and really saves us a ton of time on the water. So again, going into fall, you'll see us breaking down this lake, but that's not all we film. We don't just film fishing. We do a lot of instructional for you, teaching you techniques. So it's going to be broken up. You know, we might be talking about how to throw a lipless in the fall, and then the next day we're out on the water and you're watching us break down a section of the lake. 2 days later, we're talking about something else. You know, we're throwing flukes or jerk baits or something different, and then we're breaking down the lake again. So understand it's a process. Follow us through the entire fall, and you will see a very in-depth breakdown of this fishery. We've only been out on the water a few days now. You guys have seen 2 videos as we're out there actually physically breaking it down. There will be a lot more. Let me get the electronics fired up. We'll look at the map for a second while those are firing up, and then we'll take a much more in-depth approach. All right, back to the map for a minute. So let me back up here, give you a full zoom out. Again, the dam, we come up, middle of the lake. Here's where it splits. We can't see the rest. It's on the back side of the map. So what we're going to do for an in-depth look at this lake, because long-term we need to know the entire body of water, I'm going to identify 4 areas here. We're going to call from about, oh, maybe here down Main Lake. Okay, and I call it that. This is a river system. So again, most lakes, it's very simple to identify Main Lake because it widens out. Here we don't really have that, right? This is the only wide spot on the entire lake. But you've got these fingers that run back all over the place. So from about here down, we're going to call that Main Lake. Then we're going to call here Mid Lake. Then let me flip it over and we'll line it back up. So here's the end of Mid Lake. Then we have above that, we have what we're going to call the rivers. This is just what I'm calling it. We got the Hiwassee, then we've got that upper Tennessee River, all the way up to the Watts Bar Dam. 4 distinct regions in this lake. So what we're going to do with those 4 regions is break them down individually, and that is the part that's going to take time. Obviously, we're not going to jump onto a section of river that's 15 miles long and immediately have it figured out. There's all sorts of little, I mean, even little tiny sweet spots everywhere. And then we've got big arms full of docks, shallow backwaters. This stuff goes on and on and on. So we're going to break it down into 4 distinct pieces and break them down individually. Let's look at the Solix. All right, guys. You've seen my console before. Solix 12 here, Solix 15 here. Typically, I use my 12 for mapping. Right now, I've got them both pulled up. So what we have is the lower section of the lake, the section we're calling the main lake. And then over here, I'm just zoomed in on that Harrison Bay area. And let's just poke around here a little bit together. Now, this is not standard mapping. We're looking at a Lake Master card here. That's the card that I pop in to get, right here, to get a more advanced map than just the basic map that comes on any unit. So looking at that greater Harrison Bay area, if you were looking at this in real time, if you're actually out on the lake, all you would see is just this little section of islands here, right? Everything else is open water. So you would think, you know, if you were out here on a jet ski or you were just pleasure boating and not looking at your electronics, that this is just a big, giant, wide open area where you can casually drive a boat around all day with your friends. You would never take the time to even consider all the contours, the high spots, the low spots that could be lurking underneath. You'd never, for example, let's come up here, expect that out here in the middle of the lake, that it might only be 4 or 5 feet deep and completely unmarked, just waiting for you to drive over the top of it. But as a bass fisherman, we're looking for something completely different when we're out here on the water. We are trying to identify sweet spots where the bass are going to be. So going into fall, that's what matters right now. We're down here in that lower section of the lake because it's the most interesting. What we're looking for is the places where these fish will be in the fall. Tim already identified those areas for us in a recent video. He told us that the bass are motivated by bait fish right now. They want to feed on bait. So they're going to either be shallow in the backs of pockets, or they're going to be out deep on structure. Okay, so we can find both of those very quickly. Now I want to take it a step further. Let me zoom out here. Looking back at this arm, okay, we've got this big main open area arm here that goes, wow, it goes way, way back. Some lower arms here, also going way, way back. What I want to identify is the sweet spot, okay? The place that is the most likely to hold fish, because the sweet spot is where your odds are the highest. So to me, in the fall, the offshore stuff is easy. You're looking for the best places that come up shallow. Here's an example, okay? So we've got red on my graph. I've got it set up where red is less than 6 feet. Then we go to white or lighter blue. Then we go to that darker blue. Then we come down here to the bright green. So the bright green is 20 to 30 feet deep. I've been doing some mapping deep lately. So immediately what I can see on here is all the deep sections, okay? And then I can easily see high spots. This is a prime example. Out here in the open water, we've got a 13-foot top. Little point comes out here to 15 feet. Then it breaks down into the 20s, pops back up to 17 out here. Coming back this way, we've got a saddle going back to the shallows. This is the stuff I'm looking for. This is a giant point that runs out into the arm. See what else we've got. I'm just poking around here with you. Here's a couple of great examples. This looks like just a straight shoreline, but there's actually this great big flat running out here underwater, and it's shallow, 2 to 3 foot on top, way out here off the bank. If you can see our scale, that's 200 feet. So you're talking 200, 400, even 500 feet off the bank is 3 to 4 feet deep. Then it comes out here, tapers all the way out with a high spot at 9 to 10 before dipping off into the 20s. This is prime stuff that a guy just going down the bank is never going to see. Look at this one right above it. We've got a point up here. Here's our point. And hopefully you guys aren't hearing the tractor driving right behind me. If you are, I apologize. We've got a point. It just looks like a typical point. You'd never know that it comes out and does this big fish hook of shallow water, 7 foot out here, 7 foot there. And then look, it keeps coming way, way, way out until it's completely surrounded by deep water. These are the sweet spots we're looking for, especially this one, because what I have here is 2 shallow backwaters. That's where the bass are going to be driving bait up into the backs of those, where it can ambush. It can attack that bait, but then when they need to pull out, if bad weather's coming, high pressure, a cold front comes in, the water drops a couple of degrees, they can suck right out, no big deal, right out here to this outside stuff, and these fish will be totally comfortable going through the fall. Let's look some more. Another prime example, if you're totally focused on finding those shallow backwater fish, here's a tip for you. If you want the best of the best spots, because obviously, if I want fish busting bait, I could check the back of this one, the back of this one, the back of these two, check this one back here, this one back here, right? All these little spots are likely places. So what makes one better than another? Because I've got depth highlights in here, I can see this bright green way, way, way back here. See that little sliver of green? That is deep water. Not every cove has it. We've got a hole. Wait, let me zoom out. Let's look at where that is, okay? Here's our main river. We are, 1, 2, 3 miles off of the river. I mean, we're talking way back. And all of a sudden, we've got a hole with what, 30 feet of water in it? You've got to be kidding me. That is gold. So a pocket like this, that's exactly what I was looking for. A pocket like that one. Looks like this one keeps running back. Here's another one. A pocket like this with that deep water access right next to it. That is the stuff that will bite every single day in the fall. Because again, bait fish will be in the shallows, bass will be eating them on the good days. On the bad days, when the cold fronts come in, we're getting closer to Thanksgiving, the water temperatures are dropping. They need to have that fast deep water access. a lot of these coves, they don't have fast access back out to that deep water. Look at this, giant cove, slow access back to deep water. Over here too, this one, this one's giant. Look how far, if a bass was eating bait fish back here, look how far he'd have to go to pull out to deep water to get away from a cold snap. Way out here, he'd have to go a mile out. The fish are far more likely to be out around this deep water, pushed up into a little pocket like this, where they can ambush bait and immediately pull back out. That's what you're looking for. So again, switching back over here, where we were just at, we were looking way back here in Savannah Creek. We were looking at these guys down in here, that little guy right there. What we're looking for is the prime spots on a lake this big. In this section, we just want to look for the areas of this section that look the absolute best. In a place this big, you cannot take it all in one bite. You can take that surface approach and identify those couple of key areas, build a quick pattern, and then find the biggest fish on that pattern and call it a day. Or you can dive in depth. Diving in depth like we just started doing, we just touched the surface. I'm going to take this section of the lake and I'm going to identify the top 10 to 15 spots that fit that perfect example. Deep water, right next to shallow water, good offshore structure, but a good area to pack those bait fish in to feed on them. I'm going to find a few of those in this section. Then I'm going to find a few in the next section because we broke this place into 4 areas. Identify those areas in all 4 sections of the lake and take them on one section at a time. And it's all about building patterns. If I figure out that I'm catching them consistently when that deep water is 100 yards away, not when it's 500 yards away, well, then I go back to the map and I find every single spot that has what I'm looking for, where that deep water is only 100 yards away, and run that pattern. This is where patterns are everything. You must run patterns because you can't just go down the bank. There are hundreds of miles of shoreline. If I was going to do that, we'd be doing this for years, and we only want to be doing it for weeks or months to identify sweet spots and consistent areas. Hopefully this helps you guys. Get a paper map. If you have electronics, get comfortable with them. If you don't have a map card, you need a map card. But again, all you're trying to do, even if you're a guy on the bank, you can do this with a paper map because you find the sweet spots that are right next to road access. You find the places that are near the bridges, that are near marinas, that are near parks, places that you can go from shore and you can still identify the perfect sweet spots that you are able to access. You can do this on a grand scale like this. You can do this on a little tiny pond by, again, identifying those areas that have the most of the things that you need. They have the points. They have deep water access. They have shallow pockets. Hopefully they've got grass in those shallow pockets. That'd be great. Big scale or small scale, you can apply this to your fishing this fall or any time of year. You're going to see a lot more of us actually out on the water doing this as we go through the fall. Again, it will be mixed through our other content because obviously we need to learn this new lake. Clear Lake, we had been there for years. We had it pretty dialed in. Here, it's all fresh. It's all new. We're not talking to locals. We're not getting help. We're not asking anybody for anything. We want to take a fresh, tactical approach to this fishery, and we are breaking it down ourselves, and we're taking you along for it. Guys, if you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We'll link you all the equipment down in the description. I'll link you where to get maps, where to get a map card, all those things. My electronics, if you need electronics, and again, those other videos. But guys, you can do this on any body of water in the country. You can go out with confidence and find fish quickly, just like we are doing. Again, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.